Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next episode of the Overwatch League.
The Toronto Defiant will not be denied.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of Made in Esports. I'm one of your hosts, Spencer. With me is Chris. As you guys can see, this is the Overwatch edition of our weekly show that we do 2 episodes per week. Again, guys, if you enjoy these content and you enjoy the episodes for the Call of Duty League and the Overwatch League that Chris and I have been putting out to you every single week, please leave a like, leave a comment down below. Today's topic are the most surprising teams in the Overwatch League after 2 weeks. Let us know. What surprised you the most? You know what I mean? Which teams have impressed? Which teams have disappointed? Really curious to hear your guys' opinions before Chris and I give ours. With that out of the way, thank you for watching. Chris, let's just jump right into this.
Yeah, let's just jump right into this. Spencer, I think you have a couple interesting teams on your list. For you, who are the top teams that you're thinking about right now?
It's not even the top teams, just the ones that have surprised me the most.
The top, yes.
Personally, the most surprised team was the Dallas Fuel. I know people were like getting lower and lower on them as the season progressed, even before XE retired. And then once XE retired, I'll be the first one to admit, I sold all my Dallas Fuel stonks, right? I knew that the tank line was going to be elite. I actually had some concern, though, whether or not Fearless would be able to run the Reinhardt in a rush comp as effectively as maybe, we knew his Monkey was elite, but could he sort of transition into other playstyles? He has proven, yes, he can. I definitely was worried about the fact that this team didn't have a dedicated Tracer player, especially when XE retired, because now they just simply don't have a hit scan. And for them to come out and look as good as they have, and to come up 3-1 and beat some really good teams like the LA Gladiators, for instance, in a meta where a lot of teams are running McCree and also Tracer, sometimes both, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that like McCree and Tracer are very clearly a meta composition or meta heroes in this current meta, and the fact that Dallas Fuel has been able to look as good as they have and pull out a 3-1 record against like some pretty tough teams is extremely impressive in my opinion. I know they got knocked out, or sorry, not knocked out, but they lost to the Washington Justice. But overall, I would still say I think they're 2-2. I'm saying they're 3-1. They're definitely 2-2. But regardless, that game versus Houston, again, looks like the best team in the league, was an extremely close map 5 game. So for them to come out 2-2 and again beat the Gladiators, push Houston, like the number 1 team, to a map 5, a very close map 5, and even the Justice game, while they did lose 3-1, was like really competitive and almost into a map 5. Overall, given the fact that XE retired such short notice, they don't have a hit scan player, don't have a Tracer player, very impressive. The second thing that really surprised me... Oh, sorry, I'll let you actually talk about this. You're right. I'm cutting you off.
No, I just wanted to also say that for Dallas Fuel, I feel like they play at an extremely fast pace. And this allows them to be like one of the top ult generators in the league at the moment. I know we got some good stats from Platchat, and they're talking about Fearless, and they're like, man, this man generates 7 ults in one map. Seven monkeys. Imagine the monkey bobbling you around 7 times in a single map.
Yeah.
That's so annoying. I know it's super annoying to deal with that. So it just goes to show, if you're playing at a really quick pace, and even if you lose fast, you are building good ult. And that's what's winning games.
They're just a methodical team. Again, that tank line is super elite on paper. So given the fact that they're clear hole in DPS, which I mentioned multiple times, but also the fact that I think people were also concerned about the support lineup, right? The support lineup was supposed to be not that elite for this team. So the fact that they have a whole quote unquote on the support line, so the DPS, and they're still performing this well, has really surprised me. I think actually a big part of that is Fearless is looking like one of the best main tanks in the league, which I actually wasn't sure he was going to be able to run. I knew his Monkey would be elite, but that is impressed. The final thing is the Boston Uprising has really surprised me. I was not like high on this team. I think we had them ranked 8th going into the year in NA. 8th or 7th, but this was a team that I thought would come out, especially at the beginning of the year, and look sneaky good. I understand that Gablesy hasn't came in yet, and I wonder what they're going to figure out that situation, because I do think the reason why I ranked them as high as I did was because of the fact that I knew Gablesy was being signed on that team, and I do think him coming in there can improve that roster quite significantly. Maybe not significantly, but can definitely improve them. But overall, I thought the team should have looked better than they did this week. I thought the games they played were definitely disappointing. I know they played some good teams, but still, to lose in the manner of which they did was disappointing. And
yeah, it's a little bit of a hot take. They got 3-0 twice, and personally, I'm not a big fan of IM37. I know he's a cool story, but I'm not the biggest fan. So I feel like
he looked really good in Korean Contenders, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think you're saying you're not a big fan of him. That's because you're basing your knowledge off what happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, you're not, like, if you watch them in Korean Contenders, they won season 2. Like, they've And he was not every single map, hard carrying them by any stretch of the imagination. But the guy's clearly got talent. Played in Korean contenders for 2 years. One of the most competitive regions, if not the most competitive region. You could argue China for contenders in the world, and looked good while doing it. So he was always a raw mechanical talent. He now has the experience under his belt. Valentine was underwhelming, and Valentine I was pretty high on. I think Assassin was number 1, but Valentine would have been number 2 coming out of that region. So I think they can figure it out, especially if JBS comes in there. But at the moment it currently is, I was surprised at how low they came out.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I think it will be super important to be able to see what they can do in the next coming games. Because if they start getting some stuff on the board, like Vancouver, I was pretty low on them, but I'm seeing them getting some stuff on the board and holding out a whole lot of wins, but they're at least competitive. I'd even argue that maybe they're somebody who surprised us. They're getting slacked around, and I honestly wasn't too high on Linkster before this started, but he's actually doing pretty good, and I think they're having some good synergies. But I'm kind of digressing right now.
Yeah, because I was going to say, they also lost through into Paris. If they had performed better and beat Paris, or that was a map 5, I would have agreed with you. But the fact that they got beat pretty bad in those last 3 maps, that's one of the reasons why I don't have Vancouver. Vancouver's Rush has looked impressive, but they seem to be a Rush one-trick team right now, and I don't know if Rush is going to be the meta that we see moving forward. I personally think that double bubble is a little bit better.
Yeah, especially with the Rhine nerfs coming through too.
Yep.
If they actually do see that. Well, I think the one other one to touch on is definitely from the APAC region is Philadelphia Fusion. Now, one thing I picked up that really makes Philadelphia Fusion stand out, especially in APAC, is the fact that they're one of the only team there that can actually run a really good rush. Now, we don't know how impactful that's going to be going forward, considering the nerfs and considering kind of the meta and the fact that we think double bubble is a little bit better. But when it comes to those maps that do rely a little bit heavily on rush, I feel like you can expect them to really excel. And they've been going on pretty good runs. I mean, they've beat Chengdu 3-1 quite convincingly, and Chengdu's 3-0'd Shanghai, which I had really highly before, New York Celsius, which is a little bit less hard, but still.
Scrimbucks, they're supposed to be a really good team. So no, I agree that Philadelphia beating the Chengdu was a really big stamp. On top of the fact that they're undefeated, right? They didn't just beat Chengdu; they beat every other team they played as well. So good for them.
No, exactly, and I think that the reason why it's been such a big change is because they were on paper had a lot of question marks, and those question marks have started to really pan out and not question marks at all. I'm still really curious to see what happens if Funny Astro comes in. I feel like there may be a little bit of chance of improvement, but bring in Poco, bring in EQO, I don't see them making a massive difference.
They might, yeah. I guess the big thing is here, Hoppa's obviously looked a lot better than some people thought. It's Toby as well,
Yeah.
right? And I think that there are people in the community who were always fans of Toby, but nobody thought he was as good as Funny Astro coming into this year. So I thought you'd definitely see a downgrade in that position, but Toby's looked great. If you actually go to the IBM power rankings, which again, I don't want to bring my analysis off of the IBM power rankings, but Toby's number 1 right now. So on that team, at least, I should say, sorry, on that team. So good for him. Him and Hoppa are actually 1 and 2 on that team in terms of where they're placed in the IBM power rankings. So the 2 quote-unquote biggest question marks, recently being integrated into this team have actually came out and looked like some of their best pieces. Hoppa's in a weird position where he definitely underperformed last year, but people kind of forget that in the year prior, when he was on the charge, he actually looked pretty good. I remember when he first got signed to New York, a lot of people were actually very excited because he could bring that more aggressive play style, fit alongside Mono, maybe bring the more aggressive play style to New York as a whole. And then obviously we didn't end up seeing that. And I do think that part of this maybe was just the New York coaching staff. Again, I've heard some things behind the scenes that maybe some people aren't as high in the New York coaching staff as, at least in the past, as they should have been. And if Hoppa continues to look this good and Poku comes back, you're right. I actually do wonder if we do see a change in that position. I think Funny Astro, you're absolutely going to see. And maybe Poco's, again, it's a little bit of a map thing. Maybe it's another trial thing. But Hoppa's no slouch. I'm glad to see him get this opportunity. I'm glad to see him make the most out of it. Could this team slow down? Absolutely. Definitely possible. We see the honeymoon period is definitely a thing across a multitude of different esports. But I definitely thought that this team would lose against Seoul Dynasty. And obviously the Hunters, once Hunters 3-0 Shanghai Dragons, and they came out there and they're looking like the best team in APAC right now, which is not what a lot of people, ourselves included, thought of this team coming into the first 2 weeks of the season.
Exactly. And I think that's all on that point. I do want to quickly mention that for Toronto, I think we do have a big week coming up, in terms of really having a litmus test against some of the best teams in the league. I mean, obviously not in Paris, but in Washington Justice. I'm
I think
thinking.
we played London. We played London.
Sorry, London. London Spitfire versus Washington Justice. Washington Justice is a very interesting one
Really good team.
because I genuinely do think that the Washington will win, but I feel like we do have a chance. Like Dallas and Vancouver have taken maps off them, and Vancouver actually took Anubis off of Justice. And if you guys remember a couple weeks ago when we played Atlanta, our 5-minute hold on point 2 was really a turning point against Atlanta. So I feel like, maybe if we play that again, there may be an opportunity there to take a map or two, but I feel like we may end up. I feel like it may be a 3-1. The other two losses I feel like will be well fought, but I feel like that's going to be a 3-1.
Yeah, the Justice should probably win this game. With that being said, I think Toronto had a whole week to really, again, figure out that communication problem that I think was plaguing them.
Yeah.
And come back, again, hopefully figure out ways to run double bubble against that rush and improve that, because our double bubble looked really good. So Toronto could definitely go 2-0. I think realistically, the 1-1 is the prediction that I would go with. The last team I want to bring up for most surprising team is, because we haven't talked about it, but we have to at least mention it, is the Houston Outlaws being the number 1 team in the league right now.
Of course, yeah.
Beating the San Francisco Shock. Obviously, the last week they beat some less than stellar teams, but them beating the Shock is still like an incredibly impressive. Them beating the Shock and the Dallas Fuel, as the Dallas Fuel have continued to look really good. The tank line, I said going into the year, was one of the most underrated tank lines in the world, and I'm happy that people are finally starting to see it. Piggy is currently ranked number 1. He was my Rookie of the Year prediction. I think that I am not selling those stonks, definitely keeping those. The support line has definitely impressed me. That was the biggest thing that really caught me off guard, is I thought the support line would definitely struggle, or at the very least there were some big question marks. A huge Crimzo fan, so I was always sold on him. Juby, no idea, but both of them seem to be pretty solid. So yeah, like I gotta admit, I gotta tip my hat to the Scrim Bucks there. Yiska came on, talked about how insane happy he was going to be. And that's another team that is really surprised a lot of people by being the best team currently. Do I think they're going to slow down? Yeah. I don't think they'll stay number 1. I would still put the Shock above them. I would still put the Justice above them long term. But right now, the success that they're having is definitely surprising myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do still think that it's a little too early to kind of label them as the top team. I mean, they beat Dallas and Houston.
They've looked the best. They've looked the best. I think if you make
fine, but I see their pants in their 2 wins against those 2 significant teams. And London, Paris, it's hard to, if you look against that team, it's hard to look bad.
But they're looking good. Like, you don't just have to be like, oh, like they beat 3-1. Like, are they the best team? Like, no. Like, you can look at the score, but you also can watch the games. Like, they've looked really good, right? When they played a shot, they looked really good. They played the Dallas, they looked really good. They had really good scrimbucks coming into the year. All of their pieces are coming together. The tank line looks coordinated as I knew they would be. So that's a surprising team. I agree. If this was the main melee started tomorrow, I wouldn't predict them to win the entire thing. I still would put my money on like the Shock or something. I just have more faith in their roster as a whole. But right now, they definitely look like the best team in the league. And that's surprising.
Yeah, it's also interesting because they now have a massive break.
Yeah, they can scout, they can coach, they can watch
week
tape.
1, week 2, and next freaking set is on week 6.
Well, obviously the main melee
so
will happen.
Obviously main melee, but
I'm saying they have this entire week now to watch the games, watch their competition, and again take some notes and try to plan some strategies. So good for them. I'm excited to see what they can bring in that tournament if they can keep it up.
Cool. Hey, well, guys, if you like what you hear today, please give us a like and subscribe. Really helps out with our content, push out to other fans just like you. And if you disagree with us, please comment. Let us know. Hey, what are your thoughts and what do you agree and disagree with?
Yep. And as always, guys, thank you for watching and enjoy.